Joining us now, Congressman Mo Brooks, member of the House Armed Services and House Foreign Affairs Committees. Good to have you with us. Your thoughts about going to war on the basis of the testimony that we all heard today?
Well, I'm troubled by what I'm hearing. I don't see a clear message on the one hand, and I don't see a president that is really dedicated to the task. From what I'm discerning from the White House position, it's somewhat of a half-hearted response. And if we've learned nothing else from Vietnam, it should be this: you don't engage in a war effort unless you're dedicated to do what is necessary to win. So when you have the Secretary of Defense or one of our commanding generals that say that they're going to advise the president that it's necessary, we should use ground forces, and the president says under no circumstances are we going to use ground forces, well, if that's the president's attitude, then we should not engage because he's not willing to do what is necessary to win.
And then General Dempsey said that in discussions with him, he had said, bring it to me on a case-by-case basis, as he put it, as to whether or not he would entertain a recommendation for those troops. I'm wondering if you would explain something that we heard from General Dempsey today, if I may impose on your interpretation skills here. The general said it seeks, that being the Islamic state strategy, it seeks to build a coalition, encourage an inclusive government in Iraq to address the grievances that have caused this in the first place. Do you know what he was talking about grievances and caused this?
No, sir, I do not. And I hope that we'll be illuminated. We've got Secretary of Defense appearing before the House Armed Services later this week, as well as Secretary of State John Kerry appearing before Foreign Affairs this week. So I hope we'll be illuminated with respect to those kinds of remarks.
And let me turn to the idea that General Dempsey uttered today, which is that this could be a generational problem, this being the fight against the Islamic State, that it will require years. He suggested if we've learned nothing from Vietnam, it should be that if it's worth fighting, it's worth winning. It also should be a pretty good lesson, whether in Iraq or Afghanistan, and particularly in Afghanistan, where the Taliban that we went in to destroy is now going to inherit what we leave behind, including equipment as well as a government and a nation. Why in the world should we ever fight a war that's a long war ever again? We've seen the futility and, frankly, the pain of even thinking about doing so.
Well, if I were to distinguish a place like Vietnam, that did not pose an immediate threat to the United States of America. You had the domino theory and the effect that that might have on Southeast Asia generally. And to the best of my recollection, the North Vietnamese never actually threatened to attack the United States of America on American soil. In this instance, we do have the Islamic State that has openly said that they're going to carry the battle to American soil and the White House. And so there's a little bit of a difference there. Now, we have to examine the capabilities of the Islamic State, and given their ability to recruit American citizens to go fight in the Middle East, you have to infer therefrom that they also can recruit American citizens to fight in the United States of America. So the circumstances are different, but you really get back to the basic premise. If you're not willing to do what is necessary to win a military conflict, you don't engage. And we need our Commander-in-Chief, our President of the United States, to say publicly that he's going to do whatever it takes. And if he's not willing to do what it takes, then we don't need to be risking American lives and spending American treasury on what may be all for naught.
Yeah, and wouldn't it be kind of important, just like it was in 1990 and 1991, for the people who we want to be part of that coalition who, in our judgment, are the most threatened, that is, Arab states, wouldn't it be kind of important that they be the ones saying to us, come, we need your help? And the United States campaigning solicitously for their participation in a coalition. The size, the nature, and the responsibilities and the name of each member, we don't know.
No question. It would be nice if the United Nations played the role that it was envisioned in the 1940s when the United Nations was created. It'd be nice if the Middle East nations that are most directly affected, or Europe, NATO, most directly affected by the threat of the Islamic State, would take the lead, or at least jump forward instead of having to follow our lead. But I think what you're really seeing is, and I'm going to emphasize something that Ambassador Bolton stated, the United States of America, and in particular the White House and our president, has a credibility problem with the rest of the world. You've seen the red line drawn in Syria. You've seen the red line drawn in Iran. You've seen the bold statements made with respect to the Crimea and the Ukraine, and you've seen following up on that a repudiation of the kinds of warnings that were given by our White House and our president. And the rest of the world sees that, and they wonder whether we're dedicated to the cause. And if we're not dedicated to the cause, and the cause is to win, well, that creates some hesitancy amongst your allies that cannot be corrected until such time as credibility is restored.
And I'm one of those great believers in American exceptionalism. And I believe that with that exceptionalism comes a responsibility to use that exceptionalism and never suspend logic and critical judgment of our own policies. Congressman, great to have you with us. Thanks so much for being here.
My pleasure. Have a good evening.
Congressman Mo